Here we are. We are in Derech Hashem, and it's on page 577. We're talking about the specifics of the daily service and the prayer service. So the Ramchal discusses the effect of the night on one's daily routine, which means this chapter is devoted to a lengthy discussion on man's routine over the course of his daily activities. Before explaining in the future sections 2 and 3, a person's responsibility when he awakens, the Ramchal needs to discuss in this section what occurs during the hours of the night. So he starts out, the divine wisdom arranged that at night the forces of tumah, the contamination, the forces that are opposite being tahor, the tumah forces, should have the power to spread throughout their carriers, and thereby their branches will roam freely within the world. He explains this is the concept of tumah is a reference to the conduits that carry the forces of tumah into the world. Again, tumah is what they normally translate it as uncleanliness. So we're talking about spiritual impurity. We're on page 577. The transporter of the holiness is one unit, while the transporter of the forms of tumah is composed of many components, hence the plural carriers. And the Ramchal explains that at night the attribute of din, strict justice, rules. This empowers the forces of evil to be associated with realms that are usually controlled by the forces of holiness. Okay? So what's going on here is, since din is coming out, since judgment is coming out, so now tumah, which is also represented by death. Death is the ultimate tumah, because it's a subtraction, not subtraction, it's the elimination of holiness in the person, because the soul goes away. That's the point of death. And then he says, since the spiritual sources of tumah have more power at night than by day, their physical manifestations, or quote-unquote branches, are very influential during those hours. Although the Ramchal will explain how this influences man's daily routine, it affects other areas of life as well. A ramification of this phenomenon may be expressed in halacha. So according to Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, flavors is interesting halacha that you're about to get. It's an argument, we don't rule like this, but nonetheless it gives an illustration. Flavors absorbed in utensils become, well, this we do rule like, defective overnight. Although the accepted halacha is that this occurs only after 24 full hours, the view of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam is relevant when other factors are present. So perhaps, and now his assumption is, perhaps the increased forces of tumah found at night cause the flavor to become defective. Just in a kosher sense here. What we're having is you have a pot or a plate, whatever it's going to be, that absorbed some flavor. Let's make it a fleshik plate, a meat plate. So you put a steak on it absorbs that flavor, fine. And so now what happens is, let's say it's a really hot steak and so on and so forth. It will burn your hair. That's what makes and it's wet. So that's what makes it go. Now what happens is you only have one plate in your house, and you want to use it for dairy. Well, you can't do it. Well, you can't do it, period. But from the Torah's point of view, in 24 hours, that plate becomes parv again, because what we call notin tan lefgam. The flavor has been defective. It became defective after 24 hours. So really, according to the Torah, I could really get away with using one set of dishes if I knew for sure that I wasn't going to use that dish for 24 hours. It's not normal, so we don't, and it's also, if you have more than one dish, then you're not going to know that. So as a result, that's why we would have the two dishes, and instead of dairy, instead of meat. That's why we end up doing that. But here he's saying that maybe, according to Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, all you had to do is wait till overnight, forget the 24 hours. And so they want the commentator is saying maybe the reason that Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam hold that is because of the increased forces of tumah at night, and that's what would cause the flavor to degenerate, dissipate. Yeah, that's better. Dissipate faster than during the day. I'm not sure whether it's true or not. It's an assumption. He's making it's an interesting philosophy. Bottom line is we need two sets of dishes. Bottom line, we don't rely upon this at all under any circumstances. Well, I shouldn't say on any, but we don't rely upon this sort of leniency, and you have to kosher something, so we have to kosher. Yeah.
So, what is it called? I don't know if I'm rough around pronouncing, but
Hitbodedut, the concept of praying to God one-on-one. Yeah.
Right, it's not a good thing to do at night. If din is brought out and it's stronger form.
The truth is, they would agree with you. People would definitely agree with that. You don't want to get involved in din, right? So what you want to do is wait till chatzot, halachic midnight, not real midnight, not what we call, not astronomical midnight, but halachic midnight. So you would want to wait for that, because at that point, now chesed is running the show. Din is no longer running the show. So you want to be very careful, and so that's why people wake up at chatzot. That's around here. It's probably around 1:30, and 1:35. So it was 1:35. So they would wake up at 1:35. That's when they said slichot, or that's when they would cry for the temple, or any one of those other things that people want to do. Because at that point, chesed is now, that energy is flowing. Even though it's night, that energy starts to flow. Okay, but yeah, but I think people would do hitbodedut anytime. I don't think they generally, if they're going to do hitbodedut, so then I don't think that they have that in mind. I don't know, maybe they do. You have to talk to those people who do hitbodedut. I can tell you one thing though, the Bostoner Rebbe would not start his meal from a certain part of the day, which is when the constellation Mars is in ascendancy. The planet Mars is in the ascendancy. So I think it's from 6 to 7 or something like that. In Boston area, and in the Boston area, I think it was from 6 to 7. It was normally, I don't know why it never changed. Maybe the time of year was what didn't change. But I remember he wouldn't make Kiddush on Friday night while it was in ascendancy. He would wait.
Why Mars?
Because Mars is the red planet, representative of war.
Oh.
War, blood, war, killing. So again, this is totally in a realm I don't understand. I don't claim to understand, and I never studied it. I know what people say about it, but it doesn't really talk to me. But I know that he didn't, let him rest in peace. I know that he did not make Kiddush. That you had to wait if you were sitting at his table. Okay, but that could be for the same reason. Same concept to me. So the divine intention was that during that time, people would gather into their homes and lay in their beds, sleeping and resting until the morning. And why that? Because inactivity during the hours that the forces of tumah are roaming freely limits contact with those forces. For then the spread of their influence and their control is taken away from those forces of tumah and from all the other branches, and people can once again go out to their work until evening. She says their influence is much more limited. As such, people can counteract the dangerous influence of these forces through a regimented routine of mitzvot, as Ramchal will explain. So here we have tumah hanging around at night. If we would go out at night, then we would be subjected to their influence much more than we need to be. So that's why Hashem has it at night, because we should be home sleeping. Think about it. In those days, they didn't have lights. Today we have lights. Today we have a lot of things. So we have night shift. We have a whole bunch of things. And people aren't going to sleep as much. And if you think about it, by the way, without getting too fanatical in my old age, when when's the worst TV shows on? At night. At night is the worst TV shows. I mean, as far as violence, as far as morals, it's no longer family time. There used to be in the old days, long before you guys were born, there was between 6 to 8, I think it was family TV. I think that was the time. You guys will tell me if I'm wrong.
I haven't watched TV in years.
But I think it was 6 to 8.
Yeah.
6 to 8 was family time, and the rule was you couldn't put anything on that would not be acceptable for families of young children to watch. So you had Happy Days, you had Laverne and Shirley, you had all those shows. Well, what happened was that went away as people got older, and they started to subject their children to other things, and language became worse and worse and worse. And so now I don't think there is any concept of family TV, because everybody's so desensitized that they can watch anything anytime. Am I being too rough on people?
No. And the cable networks.
And the cable,
they had all kinds of terrible programming.
Because they weren't regulated in the same
they're
way.
still not regulated.
For the most part, no. So
Right.
they can put anything on it. And
Correct.
then you have the internet.
Right. So that again, when do most people get in trouble with the internet? At night, when they feel nobody's watching them, and then they go to places they shouldn't be going on the internet. So really, this concept of spreading tumah and this impurity, godlessness, does still apply even today, because that's when people get into trouble. When they're working during the day, they're not they're occupied, so they don't do as much as they should be doing. They don't go to places they shouldn't be going.
Are we talking shadim and dibakim?
No, I'm just talking about tumah in general. In general. And I'm taking the tumah to be, again, what is tumah? When you remove God or godliness from the equation. That's the point. It's like death. So when I'm taking Hashem out of the equation, I'll give you an example. You go to the synagogue in the morning, right? So then you pray, and then you take your tefillin off, you take your tefillin off, you wrap it up, and you put it away, put it back in the box. Now you go out and you take your kippah off your head, and you go into the real world, as it were, because you can't wear a kippah outside. People may know you're Jewish. And you go into a restaurant, well, you have to go because people are going, so I won't have the meat, I'll have the vegetables. Of course, when you have the vegetables, nobody's checked for bugs on the vegetables. Nobody's done that. I can guarantee you. When you go to a non-kosher restaurant, nobody's checking for bugs. They say bugs, it's good, it's protein. So you can be ingesting bugs. Ingesting bugs is worse than ingesting non-kosher meat. I'm saying that publicly. Because when you ingest bugs, you've broken 6 commandments at once. Kosher meat, it's one commandment.
Which is interesting, because a lot of textured foods are regulated by the FDA, which says you can have so many bug parts.
Well, we don't allow that. Obviously, we don't allow the bug parts. And that's why when you're buying kosher vegetables, you're saying it was checked.
Okay, what about an OU box of Cheerios?
It has to be a real bug. Can't just be
parts.
It can't be a leg of an ant. That's not what we're talking
No, you
about.
generally don't find
What I'm saying is that somebody going to a non-kosher restaurant and says, I'm only having a salad, or they say, I'm only having fish. That was the old Mishigas. That's 100% treif. It's 100% treif, non-kosher. 100%. Yeah. Why is it non-kosher?
No.
Oh.
I just remember something. We're on vacation, going somewhere, family vacation. And we're in a gas station. It wasn't in Was it Indiana? No,
Right.
it wasn't Indiana. But there was chocolate covered crickets.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's clearly you're not going to do that.
No,
But
you're just saying like with all the other candy stuff, chocolate covered crickets of all things.
But that's what I'm saying. That tumah, that when you have that, that's tumah in our lives today. Now, hopefully during the day, again, I won't do certain things. The influences aren't going to get me as much as night when people aren't really watching. Again, that's when we get into trouble. And I'll leave to your imagination when I mean trouble.
So what about the fish? You didn't get off that subject.
What about the fish?
Yeah.
The fish are not. Why aren't they kosher?
Yeah.
Because a non-Jew can't cook for me. So if a non-Jew cooks for me, I'm not allowed to eat that food unless I do something. I help them cook. It's fine. But although in general terms, I'm not. When I go into a restaurant, I'm not going to go in the kitchen and say, "Let me help you prepare." Okay, so that's clear. And then on top of that, the fish I have to know that the fish had scales and fins. If I get a fillet, I'm not going to know that. That's number two. Number three, the knife that you're using to cut the fish could be cutting with anything. So remember, I'm in a kitchen. And depending on the kitchen I'm in, big or small, will determine, did you just cut a piece of ham with that? What to do with that? Number four, for those who say that I'm crazy for that, you're putting it in the same skillet that you cooked some meat in. Don't tell me you didn't. Don't give me the bologna. Or if I'm putting in the oil to give a fried fish. There's so many problems that go on in any kitchen. So it's a joke when people think I can do this, and I'll get what they usually get. They used to get broiled fish. It was in the water, but everything else it could have been. And mind you, not all fish is kosher. So let's say I had to cook piece. I saw the fins, I saw the scales. What's to say they didn't cook some non-kosher fish with that same thing? Who cares? How do you cook lobster? You take the live lobster, and drop it into the boiling hot water, and it cooks. Or you think that they didn't use that water for something else? They're just going to throw that water out? Am I crazy when I'm thinking that?
Got two orders at the same time.
Well, yeah, they're not going to cook anything else in there but lobsters or possibly shrimp. But they don't boil shrimp generally.
Again, I don't know how everybody cooks everything. Fried fish. When you're making shrimp, you can fry it too, no?
You can fry them, you can deep fry them, you can batter them, you can boil them,
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to start doing all this stuff, and then you have the silverware. You can't use the silverware, because that was, hopefully, it was washed. And it was put in the dishwasher with everything else. Come on. It's insanity to try to say that's kosher. But my point is that that's tumah. That's this tumah we're dealing with. You can look at it as spiritual forces, or I can say it in general that you're removing God from the equation. That's tumah. It's no longer holiness. This is what David Melech Alav Shalom explained. He said, "You bring on darkness, and it becomes night, during which creeps forth every beast of the forest. The sun rises, man goes out to his activity and to his work until evening. However, all of these matters, in other words, the spreading of tumah, of the force of tumah by night and being subdued by day, they are within all of their boundaries and measures, and they're rooted in the primary foundations of Hashem's guidance of the world, according to the discernment of the various hashpa'ot that are provided to the created beings at all their levels." And it says the night is dark, Hashem's countenance is concealed, and the forces of tumah rule. By day there's light, and the guidance of Hashem's illumination rules. You can take that literally, you can take that figuratively. In other words, when is it dark? When Hashem's countenance is concealed. Right now in 2016, you could easily argue that Hashem's countenance is concealed. And that's why people are acting the way they act.
Night and day.
Sorry?
Night and day.
Night and day, correct. This world, that's why many people hold that this world is all night. That's why. Okay, I won't go further. But that's the. I was going to pick on Elie Wiesel's book Night. I heard it was named Night for the same sort of reason, because humanity was concealed. I think that's what he said, something like that. But the point is, that when you have light, in other words, Hashem's illumination rules, once I understand this all from God, so then night is also day. You know what I'm saying? You can look at it literally, night is when this happens, or because night, everybody's scared. Night, you walk around and you see a shadow, you don't know what you see. It was interesting. I was downstairs I was on the main floor of my house. I mean, it's like I have a mansion, right? Main floor. I was on the main floor of my house, and the lights were off, and I was about to go upstairs, and I saw something move, and I had everything locked. I saw something out of the corner of my eye move, and I'm talking about my size. So, unlike all the horror shows, what do you do in the horror show? You leave the lights off, and you walk around. No, I learned enough not to do that. Threw the lights on, and I looked around. Obviously, there was nothing there. So I said, okay, it must have been in the corner of my eye. Maybe I saw a malach, I don't know. It could have been anything. Maybe I saw some imaginary thing. Who knows what it was? And then I went to sleep. But the point is that that's night. Why do I see it at night? Because night's scary. Night things can happen. As compared to the daytime, you see something out of the corner of your eye, 9 times out of 10, you know what the size is. Or you know what's going on. Right? You're not as, oh, let me check this out. You're not that scared about it. In the nighttime, you don't know. Somebody could have come in. Somebody and jumped in. Fine. So that you check it out. You turn the lights on and check it out.
I don't know if it still is, but it was one of the Army's aptitude questions. Are you afraid of the dark? And if you're not, you're highly qualified for infantry.
We had one of our halakas at a lunch and learn was about avoiding dark places.
Right, because of Shaitan, because of the demons. But, and it could, look, I'm not going to argue on the halakha when it says that. But what I'm saying is we are super sensitive at night as compared to the day. Because, sorry? No, I'm saying physically.
Okay.
Because we are afraid at night. So I wouldn't be good for infantry, I guess. Baruch Hashem. It wouldn't put me on the front lines. But it's, but at night we are. Now, by the way, why are we afraid? This could be a lack of our bitachon. It could be a lack of our amun in Hashem. Or we could be saying, if I'm walking outside and it's dark, then it's my stupidity. That's what the halakha is saying. I shouldn't walk alone at night because of shadim and so on and so forth. That could be burglars too. So you shouldn't walk around at night alone. And if you're walking with people, then it's not a problem. Right? That's what we learn. But if it's, but at night, because of all the things that are around, and you can't see, so you shouldn't do certain things. At daytime, it's not a problem. You can walk around alone. Again, I wouldn't walk around the west side of our wonderful city here alone, because I heard it's very dangerous. West side? That's the ghetto?
A patient.
Sorry?
A patient asked their family member to make sure I got to my truck safely.
There you go.
On a night visit.
So
Don't worry about it. I'm the most dangerous thing on the street tonight. So
there you go. Fully armed. I hear it. Okay, so let's go on.
references part 1 there.
Right. As we mentioned in part 1, should look there. So he says, the Ramchal, he does make us look. So the Ramchal explained there that the amount of evil in the world is relative to the intensity of its source in the spiritual realm, which in turn is a manifestation of the concealment of Hashem's countenance. In other words, if we want to reduce evil in this world, what should we do?
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Follow mitzvot. Then we strengthen the spiritual realm. It's all relative to what we are doing. And if we don't see Hashem's countenance, then it's us. So we are allowing this, the evil, as it were, to have greater influence on us. So the Ramchal interrupts his train of thought in order to explain the rule of tumah is limited to a certain portion of the night. You must know that even though in general we say that the night is a time of the control of these forces of tumah, in actuality this is so only during the first half of the night. And he explains, even so, the rest of the night still lacks the daytime hashpah that is aroused at day through man's deeds. The Ramchal will next explain what effect the removal of tumah's control has over the second half of the night. Like I said, that the first half is before chatzot, before halachic midnight. And he says, but at midnight, again, not 12 p.m., but whatever, midnight. The way I keep saying halachic, so just for you too, I'll explain. You split the night hours into 12 equal parts. The day has to be split into 12 equal parts, and the night 12 equal parts. Okay? So sometimes an hour will be 72 minutes. Sometimes an hour will be 62 minutes. Sometimes it'll be 58 minutes, 55 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever. You have to know where you're living. So each one is an equal share. So if I'm counting that, so now I have to know when is midnight. So in a perfect world, 6 o'clock is night, and 6 a.m. on the other side is day. You have 12 hours, so that's where you get 12 o'clock. But here we have night at 10:15 is when it's dark here, and it gets light at, well, I'm talking about the summer, so it gets light at 5. Am I right? Around 5?
Not anymore.
No, I said in the summer.
In the summer.
I said when it's 10:15 and then it's 5. So you split those hours to 12 equal parts. Whatever that
6th hour.
6th hour is chatzot. That's what we're talking about, midnight. Okay? So you have to get all your mathematics out here. Okay. But at midnight, hashpah of illumination and goodwill emanates from Hashem throughout all of the realms. So he explains that this divine bestowal can be derived from the Gemara in Brachot, which states that David HaMelech arose at midnight to sing praises to Hashem. This is because Hashem's goodwill is aroused then. Again, that's what you were asking before. That's when you get up to cry over the temple. That's when you want to have a discussion with Hashem and ask for things. That is the best time. She says, throughout all the realms, so control is taken away from the forces of evil, and their branches are banished from places of human habitation. So he explains, as the illumination of Hashem's countenance increases, the power of the forces of evil decreases. That's what we said before. As Hashem's desire to bestow goodness becomes more revealed within the world, the effects of the forces of tumah disappear. The period of exile, which is called night, is also divided into these two periods. So like I said, I'm not the first one coming up with night is only not just night. Then he continues. Then the divine illumination that is associated with the day begins to be aroused until the light of the day. So he says, that is, even though it is still dark, the light of the day begins to develop after the forces of evil have been subdued. He says, the appropriate hashpah then emanates downward, renewing all of the existence through it. And he explains that as we have learned above, each day has its own unique role to play. When day arrives, the hashpah in the world is strong enough to be able to renew the creation for the day. During the second half of the night, though, there is only enough hashpah to subdue the forces of evil. There is not enough to renew the world for its new daily assignment. So even though at night, and again that's why I would say slichot, at that point, it's already taking away subduing the force of evil. It's still not strong enough. The hashpah is still not strong enough to do until the actual day. In other words, dawn. So that's what you're looking for. The matter of this control, whereby these forces of tumah rule at night, and the banishment, whereby they are banished by day, is something that has been embedded within the nature of the world and its orders, and means It's not dependent upon my actions. That's just part of how the world works. With the exception of the control and subjugation that affects them through man's actions. And here, the Ramchal explained, the Ramchal explained that Hashem's illumination or concealment is dependent upon man's struggle between his intellect and his physical aspects. Thus, when we perform mitzvah properly, Hashem's countenance is illuminated, and the forces of tumah are weakened even at night. But when we sin, Hashem's countenance is concealed, and the forces of evil are strengthened even by the day. This is something that, going back to what I was saying before. First of all, if I do the mitzvah for the proper reason, so then Hashem's countenance is glowing. In other words, you're feeling it, as it were. You're doing it because Hashem said so, and you're trusting in Hashem. On the other hand, let's say I did it, but I didn't do it because Hashem commanded me. I did it because I liked it. I agreed with it. It made sense to me. Well, then I'm not doing it because God told me. Now I'm doing it because I like it. So it's not going to bring the same level of spirituality into the world, because really I'm only doing it because I agree with it. And now the other side, let's say I don't agree with it, and I decide not to do it. I say it's outdated. So what happens? Now I don't do it. I bring darkness into the world. How am I bringing darkness into the world? Because people are going to ask me, why aren't you doing it? Assuming they care. And then I'm going to explain, well, I don't think this applies anymore. Oh, you don't think so? Planting doubt into the system. Once I plant doubt into the system, so now Hashem's countenance is more hidden. Because, let's understand something. Belief in God, acknowledgement of God, it's a leap of faith. Regardless of what you're going to say, how we're going to look at those words, it's a leap of faith. I have to accept that God's there, that God created me, that God gave me a Torah. There's a lot of leaps of faith I have to make. But either I accept that or I don't accept that. Either I trust my tradition or I don't trust my tradition. If I trust my tradition, so then it's fairly easy. I do it because it's Masorah. It's my train of transmission. I want to do it. If I don't have that, so I may pick up some things, I may not pick, and I may drop others. But that's when Hashem's concealment is manifest in the world. And that's why you have the problem with the other movements who don't acknowledge the mitzvot coming from God. They say it's man. It's written by men over the years. Okay, where are they today? I don't mean to insult my brethren out there, but let's face it, they're not keeping Torah. Regardless of how they want to say it, they're not keeping Torah. According to their own standards, they're not keeping Torah. Again, if we make standards, the least we should do is follow them, whatever that means. So here they're not, by their own admission. That's why they're trying to figure out what we should do. But it's because they threw it out. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's what he's saying here. Once you throw this out, once you take it out and you only do it because you want it, or whatever the reason is, you're going to now just bring in tumah, and that's going to rule. So you have to make decisions here. Okay, that is what the divine wisdom appraised, that for a true reality of good and evil to exist as a result of the actions of free-willed beings, the world in its natural state must be sufficiently oriented to the control of evil within it, in a manner that allows the evil to spread through portions of it, just as it allows for the absence of its expansion within them. She says thus, once there is a possibility of good, both good and evil, exerting themselves naturally, man's actions can influence their control. In order for this to occur, the divine wisdom decreed that it would be appropriate that within the phenomenon of time itself, there should be one period where evil will be empowered to rule and to spread unilaterally, and this would prepare it for whatever may possibly give sway to the forces of evil through man's actions. And he says, the fact that the forces of evil can exert themselves at night gives man a greater possibility to stumble through those forces, and there should always be another period of time in which control is taken away without concern for man's actions, and it will be a period of time that is designated to allow man's actions to have an effect upon the forces of evil. And he says it thus emerges that the strength and weakness of evil during the different time periods gives man the opportunity to either increase or decrease the power of evil. And again, let's go back to what I was saying, this period of doubt. You have the Holocaust, or any time we hit tragedy. That's when people start saying, where's God? They don't say that they don't look to themselves, by the way, when they're saying that, but they just say, where's God? How could God allow this? How could God allow that? Okay, so I'm not going to pick on anybody who said it, because I wasn't there, Baruch Hashem, and was nowhere near there, wasn't even born. The point is, anytime we have evil, anytime we have these problems, the question is not where is Hashem. We know where Hashem is. The question is what we're going to do in the face of what we think that Hashem is hiding his face, if you will, the concealment. What should we do? We should start following Torah more. And we that's really what is Ramchal is arguing here. You have time periods where evil's ruling. It gets free reign. Okay, so what do we have to do? Keep Torah. That's the answer to everybody. Keep Torah. It's always going to be the answer. But it's something that when you're hearing it, saying, come on, give me a break here. Again, Torah is what brings the godliness into the world. So it makes sense. So Hashem established two firm realities, namely light and darkness, emanating through Hashem's illumination and concealment that we have discussed in part 1. So he said over there, if you go back to chapter 2, part 1, chapter 2, part 3 and 5 and 8. So then you'll see, thus light and darkness are physical manifestations of the spiritual realm, where Hashem's concealment results in spiritual darkness, and his revelation results in spiritual illumination. So Hashem gave each of them a time period, day and night, from which the rule of the forces of tumah that we have mentioned and their banishment, from which emerges the rule of the forces of tumah that we have mentioned and their banishment. All this has been designated for the effects of man's actions, as we have explained. He says they are there awaiting man's influence through his deeds in this world. So it's really a lot is up to us. The Ramchal described the forces of the influence of force of evil of a man, leading to the first activity one must perform when he awakes in the morning. So when these forces of evil are given control at night, and as they spread throughout the world, the result is that the darkness of the world intensifies and strengthens itself. Man too, while he is lying in his bed, the tumah that is roaming throughout the world extends itself over him as well. So he says, man picks up the force of tumah roaming through the world, analogous to a radio that picks up electromagnetic waves. In other words, you don't even know you're getting it, and you're getting it. And to the degree that it has been empowered to do so, relative to its relation to the human body, through its physicality and evil inclination that resides within it. It says the human body, resides within the human body. Man's physical aspects serve as the receivers for the forces of tumah. Purely spiritual beings are not affected by them. Okay. Added to this, besides the power given to the force of tumah during the nightly hours, man's inner state of night also allows them to affect him. So add to this, it is already been prepared within the orders of divine guidance of the world, that when a person is asleep, the upper elements of his soul depart from it, as we have mentioned in part 3. And the Ramchal explained that when a person is asleep, only the lowest of the 5 elements of his soul, the nefesh, the animal part of him, remains within him. All the higher elements detach themselves and ascend to spiritual realms, When this happens, a person experiences a partial taste of death, which is what Chazal, the rabbi, stated in the Gemara. Sleep is 1/60th of death. So when our soul goes, and it has to report, as it were, to Hashem, leaving the nefesh within us to keep us breathing. So that is a partial taste of death. Okay. Consequently, the darkness intensifies within his body as a result of the absence of light of the soul that generally purifies it. So he says, the Ramchal stated previously, that the soul has the capacity to purify the body and elevate it. And although after the sin of Adam, this is no longer fully possible, nonetheless, the Ramchal explained that even now, the soul prepares the body for its potential purification. Thus, at night, while the soul has temporarily departed from the body is more influenced by the darkness of the physical world. So therefore, there exists a greater opportunity for tumah to rest upon him. This is the concept of the noxious spirit that the Chazal have, or the Ruach Ra that we talk about, that the Chazal have explained, rests upon the hands of a person while he's asleep. Now he says, here's an interesting thing. I didn't know it, but I'll give you the argument. He said there's a dispute among the rabbis if Ruach Ra, this evil spirit, bad spirit, however you want to call it, noxious spirit, occurs during the time one is sleeping, even by day, or is it solely the night that brings it about, even when one stays awake throughout. Everyone agrees that the Ruach Ra exists when one sleeps at night, which is why when you wake up, you do Netilat Yadayim, when you put in the water, not just washing your hands, because it's not a washing of sterility. It's a washing of to get the Ruach Ra off. So you have to wash alternately 3 times with the water being poured out of a cup, not even out of the faucet. They didn't have faucets in those days, but they had whatever the pumps they would have. But you couldn't just leave your hands under that. You had to wash it 3 times. So that would take off the Ruach Ra. However, that it rests upon the person's hands and nowhere else is because this is a measure and the boundary that has been limited for it by the divine wisdom as to what should rest upon a person. And he says, Rev Chaim Friedlander explains that the hands are most prone to become contaminated with tumah as they are constantly dealing with physical matters. So again, you're hearing the same concept over and over and over again. But tumah is the physical world. Without God, the tumah is the physical world is tumah. Only with God does it become tahor. This is what is proper according to a state in the world, no less and no more. So the Ramchal explains that the first activities of the day removes the effects of the Natan Tumah. So the divine wisdom prepared for man something through which he can endeavor in the morning to elevate himself from his lowered nighttime state for the sake of purifying himself from the tumah that he has contracted. And he says, although a person naturally reaches a higher plane simply because daylight has come and the forces of tumah have been subdued, still he retains the damage sustained from his contact with those forces of tumah during the night. This endeavor reverses the person's nocturnal decline. And also to elevate the entire world from the lowered state and to illuminate it from the darkness that has befallen it. He says, it is the spiritual darkness, the result of the concealment of Hashem's illumination, that drags the world downward at night. The removal of the Ruach Ra leads to increased divine illumination in the world. So he says this entire matter is included within the enactments that were enacted for the time of awakening, both within one's activities and within one's speech, as we will explain with the help of heaven. So he said, in Kitzur HaKavanot, the Ramchal explains that when one says the blessing recited before performing the mitzvah, the divine Shefa emanates into the world. Okay. So the Ramchal begins to explain how we remove the tumah contracted during the night. The first action is the purification of one's hands. The reason why this comes first is because it is the hands that have been defiled through the noxious spirit, the Ruach Ra'ah, resting upon them. Therefore, one must drive the spirit away from them and purify them. Hashem ordained that this spirit should be expelled from one's hands through the appropriate washing of one's hands, as Chazal have taught us. And again, he explains 3 times, alternately on each hand. The Ramchal explains some of the couple of reasons behind this in his Kitzur Kavanot. So subsequently, the person's entire body can purify through this action, just as it had been entirely defiled as a result of the resting of the noxious spirit on his hands. So even though the Ruach Ra rests only on the person's hands, his entire body is affected by it. Thus, when the Ruach Ra is expelled from the hands through the Tadayim, the person's entire body is purified as well. Now, I want you to think about this. Here you are, you're waking up at night at 2 in the morning, you have to go to the bathroom, and suddenly halacha is kicking in on you, and you have to wash your hands before you go to the bathroom. Okay, now, some people, by the way, have the basin at the bed because you're not supposed to walk more than 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet with this Ruach Ra'ah on you. So then some people hold the whole house is Dalet Amo, fine, whatever leads you want to hold on. But regardless of that, once you get to the bathroom, or before you get to the bathroom, you have to wash your hands. It means you have to wake up enough to realize, it's not just I have to do my bodily functions there. So I have to get up and I have to wash my hands again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, with a keli, with a cup, and then try it. No bracha. Try and go to the bathroom, then wash again because you went to the bathroom. I have to wash again, and then make a sheyatzar and go to bed. Okay, it's a lot of stuff to remember when you're 2 in the morning and you're walking around hitting the walls. What was your question?
Now I have two. First one was, if you get up in the morning to use the bathroom.
If you get up in the morning?
In like early, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, 2 in the morning. Okay.
I mean, like, I don't know. But you get up, go downstairs to go to the bathroom or wherever your bathroom is, and you go back to sleep. And there, at least on the what's it called?
Ruach Ra'ah.
The blessing part that you make for doing the washing of the hands. That's only for when you wake up, like the first time.
Really wake up.
Really wake up. Oh, okay.
Not 2 in the morning.
Oh.
No. You only do it when you're really up. Truth is, you don't do it until you come to shul. In other words, when you're about to daven. Right. The whole thing of until you daven was when you're supposed to be davening. So that's why we have sinks right outside. So what should happen is you come in, you wash your hands here, and you make a alat to daven. Okay. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't wash your hands at home too.
Right. So
you have to wash your hands. Again, you shouldn't walk Dalet Amo, but the halacha is saying that you should make it for various reasons. I would send it to the Mishnah Berurah for that. But for various reasons, you should wait till you right before you're about to daven, right, in the morning. Yeah.
So if you're just waking up and you're bouncing off the walls, trying to find your way to the bathroom to use the bathroom to get back to bed.
Right.
Why do the?
Because you want to get rid of the Ruach Ra'ah that's on you. So that's what I'm saying. The spiritual.
Right. So my question is so sense. Do you then do that again when you get back up?
Yeah.
You go to sleep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wake up.
Yeah. Every time. Yeah.
Okay.
Every time. Now some people won't wash because they can't remember to wash. But really, the halakha is pretty clear about this. You're supposed to do it. And my point is that if I'm constantly doing this, training myself, then why am I doing it? Only because God said so. I'm not doing it because I want to. I want to get in, get out. I don't want to be woken up. The truth is, leave me alone. But it's better than the alternative, if you will. I'm not a baby, so you don't want to deal with that. But it's, you really rather sit the whole night through. But if I have to wake up, so I'm still a Jew when I'm making it myself to do these things, and so it's all part of that getting rid of the ruach ra, because I don't want to touch anything with the ruach ra, because let's face it, if I don't wash my hands, then I start rubbing my eyes, now the ruach ra is gone, can go out anywhere. That's the point when the ruach ra. The other major point that we're hearing is that when I'm training myself constantly to bring God into my life, again, God, let this ruach ra come into me. Fine, it emanated me, like you said, the radio waves. Great, okay. I know that I want to get rid of that because I want to be with Hashem at all times. That's why I said. That's why I said Shema for going to bed, right? Shema Lamita. That's why I'm doing that, because I'm saying, Hashem, I'm pointing my soul to you. So take care of it. Hopefully you give it back to me in the morning, and so on and so forth. But it's that whole concept that we're giving it over to Hashem. Okay, so yeah, what did I get to? I was over here.
Before the speech thing.
It's on page 587, yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so furthermore, this matter also contains rectification for the entire creation. And he says, Ramchal said that when we purify hands, we elevate the entire world from its lowest state during the night, that it should be purified from the nocturnal tumah and emerge from its darkness. Chazal also combined with this act of purification of a person's need to clean his body by expelling waste matter. And he explains the wastes within the human body are not merely manifestation of physical uncleanness, but of spiritual uncleanness as well, imparting tumah to a person. Therefore, these wastes must be removed. As such, he will be completely purified and ready to draw near the Creator. And he finishes with, thus, even this physical act is related to one's preparation of communicating with Hashem in the morning prayers. A person must be cleansed of all spiritual and physical impurities in order to approach Hashem in prayer. We will have to stop here.